Listening to your goals and dreams is our top priority at West Tennessee Bank. Benefit from our more than 100 years of experience and visit our Henderson branch today. West Tennessee Bank, focused on you. West Tennessee Bank is a division of Decatur County Bank, equal housing lender, member FDIC.
First item on the agenda are our minutes. Is there any corrections or any amendments to our minutes? Minutes as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. All those signify by no. Okay. Next item on the agenda are accounts. There's no vote required. If you have any question on our account, please give us the page and the line number. Questions on our accounts? Okay. Next item is item C, delegations. If anybody would like to address the city at this time on any issue concerning the city, please come forward.
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation to speak before your group tonight. I'm a little nervous. I'm old, and I realize that you can't control your nerves after a certain age.
Well, you're not old.
But as you know, I own a house on White Avenue, 915. I purchased it back in about 2012 or 13, and did a complete restoration of the house to the way it was when Dr. Beard built the house. I did it in the honor of my former wife, and gave it to my daughter. Now she lives in Jackson, so I'm in the process of selling that house. In that process, some things have come to light that I think you should be aware of. Had people from California, Tennessee, Michigan, Florida, scattered around the country looking at Henderson at that house. And in that process, I discovered one thing that really took me back, because when I bought the house, most of you remember Nancy McCain. In the back is a pasture. She had horses back there forever. Matter of fact, they're buried there with the tombstone now. It was my impression that we could have a horse there if we wanted to. And I personally asked back about 2013 if that was possible, and was said, given the information, yes, if you build a shelter and it's approved. So I was living with that impression until recently when I discovered through my realtor that they were told they could not have a horse there. This couple was from Texas. And when the realtor told me, that was a shocker. That was the third situation where a deal was killed by this community. The first one, the person wanted to have a hobby in the garage. That could have been a big business someday. on apple, but we killed them before they ever came to Henderson. I personally talked to that person. I would have built him a building when he needed it, someplace out in Henderson, but he never came to Henderson. The second one, you're probably voting on the bed and breakfast. I can assure you that will probably never fly because of what's required to do it. The third one was the horse they wanted to have, they coming from Texas. I had a call yesterday about another activity that I guarantee you would not approve it if they called and requested to do it. So I'm seeking approval to have a horse up there for somebody if they want, because there's 6 acres there of pasture that I specifically put there for horses, with the idea I have one for my grandson, but he was not a horse person, so I didn't buy it. And so that's my remarks. If you have questions about these other situations, that the house brings people to Henderson. Anybody can afford it, have the money, and they will bring other things to your community.
You still have 18 acres, correct?
Pardon me?
The 18 acres still go with it, right?
Correct.
But there's 6 acres of pasture land behind the house.
We actually baled hay off of it for a couple of years.
Okay. What was the hobby?
He had a small machine shop that's built parts for scale model train engines. Little wheels, all over the internet. They didn't come to his shop.
So, is there anything wrong with that, Fred?
Well, we don't normally allow commercial endeavors in residential districts. And I talked to the man, talked to him on the phone, saw, I can give you a website to show you what he does. He takes, uses CNC machines, milling machines. He does metal work on model trains. He said that he had somebody that worked with him at times, so he's got an employee, and he's doing it outside the residence. So all those are not allowed according to the zone.
You would have never known he was in that building. My shop on Crook Avenue, I've had similar situations, but I've sold all my equipment. And there's other folks in this community doing similar kind of things. But if you don't bring people to the community, sit down and develop a plan, if you get to this size, this is what you're going to need to do. But if you kill it before it ever gets here, you'll never grow. I'm emotional because this is what I did prior to retirement, recruiting big industry to communities, training the people for those industries. I've been involved in starting businesses, and I see it kill before it ever gets off the ground.
Did we discuss that at all, or just, it was, I don't remember it.
I hadn't heard it about that.
Yeah, I hadn't.
Well, to be clear about it,
I'm
to
just asking a question.
Brent's defense here, this, maybe not this board, but previous city councils have voted on zoning. They vote on what you can have and what you can't have. And all Brent can do is say what your rules by this board is, and he enforces those rules. Like I explained to Mr. Carlos, this is where you come up and try to change it. Brent cannot change it. And it's really not fair to Brent to everybody turn and look at Brent and like he's doing something wrong. He's doing exactly what the regulations tell him to do. Now the horses is one that kind of shocked me because I told Mr. Smith completely something that was different than what I thought it was. Zoning says you cannot have, what, livestock and everything.
Farm animals or.
City ordinance says you can. We have a conflicting city ordinance and a conflict with the zoning. And that's the reason I asked Mr. Smith to come up tonight, so this board can have, that we have to address that.
Yeah.
Because we have two one says you can, and one says you can't. So that's one thing we think. To me, and I think all of us here think it's absolutely ridiculous,
Right.
that you can't have a horse, if you go on 8 acres, that you can't have a horse on your property somewhere, or 2 horses or something like that. So, and matter of fact, people have them here.
Yeah.
They were grandfathered in and some of this. We've had barn. You know, let's be honest. My father had a barn. My father had a barn here. Mr. Quentin Newman, him had a barn. He had 25, one time had 45 walking horses on that barn that ended up getting in the city. It wasn't in the city, but it later got in the city. But they had a walking horse barn here. So, to me, that one we have to address. But the one on the other stuff is, if the city council wants to change it, that's where we change it. We change that. But to Brent's defense, Brent's doing exactly what the zoning tells him to do. And so and when somebody calls him, that's his job, is to tell him, this is what this is, you can do it or you can't do it. But when the one on the horses got me, because I always thought we could, then we started looking at it, it was completely, the zoning was completely different what the ordinance was. And that's the one I asked Mr. Smith to come up and talk to us about that, because we need to correct that.
Let me make a suggestion on, like the first one. When there's a question and you've got potential person with lots of potential to come to your community, you want to get them here. Sit down, develop a plan. If you get to this phase, this is what you need to do. If you get to this phase, this is what we can do. An industrial authority kick in, and you can have an employer here. The employer that he's talking about is an intern. He's not a full-time person. He comes over when he needs some help. He's a student at one of the universities, kind of thing. What I'm saying is, we need to look at how we address potential people coming to our community and how we handle it. We can either say, no, people with money, they're going to go someplace else. If they've got potential, we want to get a hold of them and bring them here so we can create some more jobs. I'm sorry.
You're fine. You're doing fine. I think the lady in the back is really would like to come up and speak. I think this is their issue she wants to talk
I
about.
would just like to say I live in the city limits and there's 2 horses right behind my house that are right up to my fence.
Sure. Yeah, there are horses.
There's
yeah.
horses here. I don't think, and that's like
and excessive
I'm going to say something that I really hate to talk about, but it's chickens. And we've argued about chickens here for years, and there's still chickens here. So it is what it is. It is what it is. But the deal is, one thing I would like to do, and we talked about it, Jim, one thing I'd like to do is get one of the aldermen here, along with Jim and Brent, to address the horsemen. Because I think we have to, that's one we have to address. We have horses here, we have people that want horses that got plenty of acres like Mr. Smith does, they've got plenty of acres to deal with that. We need to get together and get that. That's something we can resolve quick, and I think we need to get that resolved. I'm asking Mark, you want to? Okay, Mark and Jim and Brent come back with something next meeting so we can vote on that and fix that.
I get a question.
Now we still have to bring it, but we're going to bring it in front of the zoning, or do we have to bring it in front of the zoning?
Yes. Remember, do your zoning ordinance, so the planning commission will have to hear it too, to remove it from their regulation. My opinion would be is remove it from zoning, address it with your city municipal code.
Okay.
And reference the city municipal code in your zoning ordinance. It says livestock as allowed.
So what we need to do in the zoning is just omit that, take that out.
But we still have to have them approve taking it out,
Yeah.
and this board has to vote on that too.
And so we'll have two issues here with us.
Yeah.
Jim, at one time, there was something through the city board that provided some type of waiver or something to Molly Shelton?
Yes.
And for some aging horses to allow her to keep them till they passed, and they couldn't have any more. What was, was that through animal control, or how was that done? I can't remember.
Well, this council did.
Council.
Y'all gave her
And
a
this-
special
and
section.
let's go back to some things. There's another thing this council did years ago, before my time. This council one time gave a man authority to keep cows on his lot. I forgot how many cows he had, but the city council gave him authority to keep cows one time, because I remember them being out there. I thought, why had to keep? So, I mean, the council can.
There's a world of livestock and horses inside the city limits now that are grandfathered in. They've just been pastures or whatever since the beginning of time, or since they were annexed into the city, especially out on the areas that have been annexed, especially since like the 90s. But there's also other locations that have horses for many, many years that are still located even in the heart of the city.
One, I mean, I guess there's the issues that the city has to address. Perfect example, I think Carter can tell you this one. We had a horse one time and Brent can too, that somebody had him, and it's less than an acre lot. They had a rope going over a tree tied to a desk, and that's what they had him hooked up to. And this horse was sitting out there, no shelter, not anything. You know, those are the things that we, on the ordinance
horse
address.
one time died, and I think the city was the one that had to go bury it because it was sticking so bad the neighbors couldn't stand it.
So, I mean, you know, there's reasons we have this stuff, is try to, you know, on the bad end of it, we got to deal with it, so. But if we could do that's just a suggestion, the board's happy with that, we don't have to vote on it, we just have Brent and Mark and Jim get together and also we'll put something in the next planning commission to make changes we need to make. You can get with Shelton to make those changes on that, dealing with the horses. Now, the other one is something that, would that have to go through the planning commission, or would that have to come through here?
Well,
The one we're talking about, the business one.
that has to go to the planning commission too. That's a whole nother situation.
And
Yeah, that's mainly all of the zoning.
Okay.
Regulations concerning businesses and residential districts, all those regulations are in zoning. So that would have to go to the planning commission for their discussion originally, and then it would come to the city board after they make a recommendation. While we're thinking, everybody needs to be thinking. You know, everybody's saying horses, but you gotta think cows, goats, sheep, pigs, and everything else comes into this full circle that you gotta address one way or another. So,
I think even this board dealt with the hog on
Yeah.
Fifth Street one time. The guy, it was a pet and had a hog on Fifth Street, and had to deal with
you
it.
got the big state house. Yeah, people are a little different now, you know, every kind of livestock is being kept as pets in some cases, so it's a different world now.
Sam Circle's got a big old pig. Big pig.
Oh, yes, I have seen.
He chased me. But I would like to, Brent, I know the mayor thinks I was fussing at you. I was looking at you simply as the expert, not that I was, and I beg your apologies.
No, wouldn't claim to be no expert. but
Oh, you are too.
All I can do is try to enforce.
I think, yeah, I
And
think
you're
you do.
doing exactly what you should, and I don't want you to think, I was just, you're the man, you know these things more than any of the rest of us, anybody up here. So that's why I addressed you. But I absolutely was not fussing.
That hadn't changed, I don't think, in 20 years.
Yeah, well, I just, I know you're the go-to guy. And you and I had a conversation too about a pottery shop.
Yes.
And that was okay, as long as I'm not having a business, I'm teaching.
You're doing it for yourself, or
Right.
an instructor,
Right.
but
Like piano lessons or whatever, singing lessons.
I will send all of you the link to this guy's website,
Okay,
and you decide for yourself if that's a hobby or a business. But I just, like I said, I've got something to go by, and I try to make that based
Sure.
on what I say.
and I think those are for your protection, because you do have something to go by, but yes, I was addressing you as the absolute resource for that question.
Home occupations that are allowed can have no employees in the zoning law right now, that's a clear, hard, fast rule. So if anybody has an employee at all, you can't have it in a home occupation.
Okay,
Now, I'm saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying that's what the regulations say.
right.
It's always been that way.
Okay. Anyone else would like to address the board on any other issue? Okay. All right, we go to item D. Item D is considered final action on an ordinance amending Henderson Municipal Zoning Ordinance that would allow bread and breakfast establishments as used on appeal in RS and R1 residential districts under certain regulations. Brent?
Yes, this is the exact same ordinance that you looked at last month. We're trying to, we've looked at this, limiting it to a certain area, but we've decided that, or the recommendation was to encompass the RS and R1 zones across the entire city and not limit it to a geographical area or between certain streets.
So you just need a motion that this is our second
This is
reading.
our second reading on this.
I make the motion that we do encompass the whole city and not just certain streets.
Okay. I have a motion to approve the ordinance on the final reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Is there any discussion on the ordinance?
I do want to clarify, this doesn't make it for the entire city, but the entire city zones R1 and RS.
Okay.
R2s and R3s and business districts, and still not allowed.
Got
But
it.
there are regulations, I think everybody's aware of, through the fire marshal's office that we have no control over. It does make sometimes these calls prohibited, but that's outside our control.
Is there any other further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Phelps? Yes. Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Manus?
Yes.
All voted in favor.
Okay. Next item is item E, consider final action on the ordinance amending Henderson Regional Zoning Ordinance that would allow the use on appeal and set regulations on animal feedlot operations in the planning region. Brent?
Yes, sir. This is something that mirrors the county zoning. We did not want to be less restrictive than the county is in the area that we do regional zoning outside the city limits. So we tried to mirror that, and in some cases, we may just be a small amount stricter, but we're at least as strict as they are, trying to mirror their ordinance.
Make a motion that we accept the ordinance as written.
Have a motion to approve the ordinance on the final reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Is there any discussion on the ordinance? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Phelps? Yes. Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Manus?
Yes.
All voted in favor.
Next item is item F, consider ordinance amending the municipal code, Title 16, Chapter 1, Section 16 through 110, concerning parades and regulations and permits. Chief?
We looked at this parade ordinance that the city had. It says that you can get you're supposed to get a permit from the city recorder. It's never been done. Since I've been chief, that's one of the things I've noticed. At one point, we had a whole city block shut down for a block party in the streets. The police department was never notified. So if we had a fire, EMS, any kind of emergency, we don't know it. And plus, if we have those events, I need enough time to bring in extra people, because I've got 2 on duty most of the time, and to bring in extra people to cover those streets. So all I'm asking is we adopt this new city ordinance on parades. It mirrors a lot of cities that I looked at. The jury sport, his attorneys, his office looked at it, and we came up with this where they just ask for a permit. We give them a permit. It doesn't cost them anything, but gives us the notification we need.
Jerry? I think Jerry gives it his thumbs up.
I'll make a motion to give you the authority.
I have a motion on approving the first reading of the ordinance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Manning?
Yes.
All voted in favor.
Okay, since it was unanimous, we can entertain the motion on the second reading.
Make a motion, we accept the ordinance.
We have a motion, second, the ordinance on the second reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Phelps? Yes. Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes? Yes. Mr. Manning?
Yes.
All voted in favor.
Ordinance passes. Okay, next item on the agenda is item G, discuss and consider passage of 2022 city budget and tax rate ordinance on the first reading. Proposed tax rate will remain the same at $1.05 per 100 assessed value. Jim?
Okay, this is the identical budget y'all saw in the last budget meeting with one exception. As we discussed last meeting, the money coming from the governor's office did get cut in half from our proposed originally $169,000 to $84,550. And because there is a deadline on spending this money, we felt like the best thing to do is we're going to spend this money on patrol cars and the generator for the fire department. That way we can go ahead and get the money spent. And so, whereas before we had this money in the expense side as undesignated, it's still undesignated, we just put it into the regular total undesignated funds. If you look at that report on page 3, well,
Yeah, three.
about the fifth line down is $345,800. That, in the last copy y'all saw, that was $261,000 and some odd dollars. The difference is that $84,550. So that's where that money is going to be, really, and it'll be y'all's decision on how we spend that money once we sort of see how things are going and how the federal money shakes out. There's just too many unanswered questions. So right now, we're not designating that portion of the budget for anything.
It's
just
a
y'all's
place
discretion at a later date. Huh?
It's more or less a place marker.
Yes, it's a place marker, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Because-
we're saying we're spending the money on patrol cars and generator in order to meet the deadlines to make sure.
But we're not.
We are buying the same cars.
Yeah, but it ain't for that, I
Yeah.
mean, just so there's no confusion.
Yeah, yeah, we're not buying anything extra, we're not doing anything, and y'all haven't already seen, it's just where the money's laying in the budget.
Right.
Y'all decide what to spend on.
Right.
And as I've always said, why restrict funds you don't have to restrict? And this is the way we don't necessarily have to restrict those right away. We can do that later as y'all decide what to do.
Okay.
And of course, we were talking about using some of those extra monies to do some renovations, and maybe the area over here is another classroom, et cetera. And right now with building materials the way they are and everything, we may want to put it off a little bit. So we may not make the deadline if we're going to actually use dollar for dollar for that use. So I hope you understand what I've done there. Dollars are all the same total, still got the same undesignated amount, it's y'all's discretion how to spend it, it's just in that one line item instead of two. I hope I didn't confuse you.
Just for me. I move approval of the ordinance for the budget for coming year.
I have a motion to approve the first reading of the ordinance. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Manning?
Yes.
All voted in favor.
It's unanimous, but since it is our budget, we will have to bring it back up with the public hearing next month to finalize the budget. Okay. Next item on the agenda is item 8, discuss and consider the passage of ordinance to set water and sewer rates effective July 1, 2021 on the first reading.
Several years past, they passed ordinance to set rate increases for multiple years. That way we do smaller rate increases. This is in line with what we've done traditionally in the past, and it just keeps our department up with inflation, hopefully with inflation. That's going to be the
That's a big deal.
big, yeah, but it is in line
I think I'd raise the question to Lisa, if we bought some of the equipment that you were looking at, and it hits the books and starts being depreciated, this rate increase cover that extra depreciation plus just the natural cost? You seem to think it would, at least out, you projected it out 2 of the 4 years?
Any questions? What's the pleasure of the board?
I would move the ordinance to increase for the increase, 2.5%.
I have a motion to approve the ordinance. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion on the ordinance? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Phelps? Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Manus?
Yes.
All voted in favor.
Okay, it's unanimous, but on request of the board during budget, we will address this again on next month. We won't do the second reading tonight, we'll do the second reading next month. Okay. Next item on the agenda is item I, consider adoption of resolution authorizing the application for the Delta Regional Authority DRA grant for water main extension along the west side of US Highway 45 North in the 1600 to 2900 block for fire protection. Sarah?
On the west side of the road from, I think, back behind Sam, there's a fire hydrant behind Lofton Chevrolet, there's one on Tucker Cove. But that section on the west side of 45, all the way from there, pretty much the Magic Valley, doesn't have a fire hydrant on it. We've looked at 3 different options. One would be to go where we made the 12-inch crossing back down where the old cotton bolt or whatever it used to be and come back up there. That was the most expensive option, and it didn't make any sense to carry water down 45 on the east side and then carry it right back on the other side. And what we're proposing is to make a highway bore close proximity to Lonnie Todd Ford, go over and go both ways, and that'll give us the ability to, any expansion we have on that side of the road or any industrial fire needs that right now, if they were to have a major fire on that side of the road, they basically have to shut down 45 and lay lines across the road. And so that's really a real vulnerable point there. I think it's definitely needed for the future growth of that area and the future potential of properties on that side of the road to get adequate fire protection. We also looked at coming from the stamping and running that line, but it's a 6-inch line there, and when you do the modeling, the engineers didn't feel like we would have adequate fire from there. But if we do the tap right there in front of Honeycott Ford and run it across and then extend it both directions, that'll give us about 3 fire hydrants on that side of the road that will allow us to serve any future growth or any future needs on it.
You could go down to about where the utility easement is.
We can go down to about where the utility easement is for, where the power line and the gas line is into the utility.
Tim, what is the matching grant?
Okay, the total project cost estimated at $331,240. The local portion, if we get funded, will be $16,562. And there's a resolution in your packet that approves those amounts.
Is this sounded to you as well, Chief?
And this, I think also, what's also on the plan, from my understanding, also the plan, this will give the university on their campground, or new campgrounds, the opportunity to run fire suppression there, which we able to run lines up there to have fire hydrants up in that area. This is another issue there.
They did sprinkle that new building they built. They actually, when we looked at that line and made the tap, shown on our drawings, it's 6 inch, it's actually a 4-inch cast iron. And so, you know, that particular side of the road, really from kind of this, from really Locke and Chevrolet all the way north on that side of the road is a deficiency of fire protection.
All the way through Magic Valley, all the way?
No, not in Magic Valley. You know, when I first came, we did that 12-inch tap, road bore 12-inch tap, and set a hydrant right there, kind of between Ducks Market and that
ENT.
right, ENT right in there. We set a big fire hydrant there on a 12-inch line.
Okay.
Stuff
So that's
that
good. It's just Mid-South Youth Camp, kind of.
It's too far away to supply any fire protection, and if we went up there and came back this way, it would be a lot higher cost than what we
Any other questions by the board?
Make a motion.
Have a motion to approve the resolution?
Yes.
Have a motion to approve the resolution. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Phelps? Yes. Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes? Yes. Mr. Mann?
Yes.
All voted in favor.
Resolution passes. Next item is item J, other business. The other business I have is letting everyone know, after this meeting, we will have a budget meeting going to capital valley projects for the utility department. After that, in the classroom, after this meeting is over. Chief, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Brent?
The only thing I had was the streets that we had paved, we did part of the way, we put 3 inches of binder down on it. We did Kimberly Drive, we did the Tackler Drive, West Park Place, we did 3rd Street by Bone down to the railroad track. We did West Johnson Circle, Bowling Avenue, we did patch spot on Vermeer Way, and also being cold.
What's in the plan? What's the next things?
The next plan, we're looking at doing Old Jackson Road and Garden Bottom Road and this.
Jim?
I got a couple items, well, really, yeah, two. We passed the COVID pay leave effective until tonight for the employees. You know, we had this 80 hours that the employee could use, so basically we let it go until tonight. We've discussed it, and things are getting much better. Anybody that wants a vaccine can pretty much get a vaccine now, but just to make things easy, we decided we want to recommend to y'all that y'all extend that to June 30th, which is the end of the fiscal year. So anybody that hadn't used their 80 hours and knew they have to be out due to a COVID-related issue, then they can still get that COVID pay. It doesn't affect their sick leave or their vacation. But at that point, we're asking it to cease. So, but it's up to y'all. It'll either cease tonight if you don't do anything, or we can carry it on to June 30, which is a month and a half.
If we had a lot of people take advantage of it since we extended it?
Since we extended, we've had several more people. Some of it's not been as drastic. We've had several people take it because of reactions to the vaccine, which is normally only a day or two. But yes, since the beginning of time, we've had a world of employees that's had to take advantage of it. If nothing else, quarantined because of kids or because of some reasoning. But we still have several employees that haven't used any of it. So
I think this is something we certainly can do for our employees. It's not going to be much cost, I don't think. I'd say let's extend it to June 30th. Do we need a motion for that?
Yeah.
I'll make the motion that we do extend the benefits for the COVID to June 30th.
Have a motion to extend to June 30th. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by no. Mr. Jim?
Bloodmobile will be here tomorrow, starting at noon. It'll be in the parking lot right out here, so just for you to know, if you want to give blood, they'll be here from noon to 6.
Alicia, you got anything? Here.
No, sir.
I want to thank Alicia for taking the time and trouble to dig up that deal about figuring out with appreciation and stuff. That's the only thing I can.
Nothing. Thank you.
Jesse? Okay, the only two things is tomorrow we have the the Eddie Arnold plaque that will be unveiled at Sioux Chef White Park. We've asked if you're available, please come. If there's nothing else, we'll see everybody in a few minutes in our budget meeting. Was it?
You got one more thing you want to
Help me out.
Camera.
Oh, that's gonna be the budget. You'll do.
He's got to be here.
He's gotta be here, that's right. This is not, and I'm not gonna throw this on the police department, this is me. We're looking, and we talked about looking for what's called skytop camp. And we have picked an area that I think the police department's come to us, and we've talked about it, those three have talked about it on more than one occasion. And we've had like 3 shootings in one area. And the skytop camera runs about 9,000, runs a little less than 9, probably a little less than 8,000. We're asking for about $8,000 and to put the skytop camera, which will be in the area. I don't know, do you have any problem saying where we're going to put it?
No, that's fine. Where we'll put it is right across from the Elks Lodge at Blue Ray and Steve. It'll get Cedarhurst. It'll get, have 3 cameras on it. We're asking to buy it outright. It's cheaper in the long run. It'll be ours. We can have it there. It's very much needed there.
The reason I brought it up, these guys defense, they were going to wait and try to do it in the budget, next year's budget. And I said, this is something we need to do. We've had 3 shootings in this area this year, or last year and a half, and we really need
one murder.
In one murder, yeah, murder. And this is the area we need. We've been talking about it for the last 2 years. We've talked about these, and this is the opportunity to do it. And for the cost we got, and they have it in their budget to do the monthly. I think the monthly fees like $35, $40 something like that.
No, if you buy it out, there's no. If we buy it outright, it's just buy it one time. It's ours.
It's ours. We do. And so, I'm asking the board to give us approval out of undesignated to do that.
I just want to ask a question. What's the circumference? I mean, how does it say down Blue Ray?
Well, we build it the way we want it. Whereas this one, the cost that we got will have 3 cameras. We'll have one that's going down Cedarhurst. Cedarhurst is Arlington State.
Okay.
Which now, there's been so many people move in there that I couldn't find an officer on the police department who could name 4 families in there. We've become a place where they're moving in from everywhere. And that's where we've run search warrants over there. We've had shootings. We've had a murder last week. It's hard to identify cars or anything else over there. So we would like to put that camera there, down Cedarhurst, down Blue Ray, and then Steve Street, so we can get what's coming in from Mifflin or whatever. This also comes with a tag reader, right? That'll monitor tags, so if we have a stolen car, amber alert, silver alert, or anything like that, it's going to let us know that. We can monitor them with the equipment we have, the computers in our cars. We can actually monitor those from the cars, and we're looking at maybe putting a screen in dispatch, and they can watch it for them.
Just like a city monitor.
Okay.
And I think
Now, can it expand? I mean, can you add to that?
We can add another camera. I think the most on that one location would be the 3.
What we quoted is the most we can put on one box.
Okay.
I think during our discussion, the big issue with us is adding more than one of these.
Yeah.
We're looking at certain areas, and our high crime areas and other areas that I think you can honestly see 3 or 4 or 5 of these in the next 4 or 5 years.
All the towns around us are using them. Bolivar, we talked to Chief Jones there, he's got them. Chief Pitts in Savannah's got them. Jackson's got them everywhere. And they are, just like Bolivar said, he's got a problem over there. When he shows up, nobody's seen nothing. But that camera is showing him what, who did see something, or the cars, or whatever.
But I'm asking the board to allow me to allow the police department to get about. I'd ask you to give us up to $10,000 to purchase this out of undesignated.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second? Have a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by no. Thank you very much. I think this one is, I think it's time, and I think these guys are doing it. It's time to be proactive instead of reactive. And I have to admit, in the last year, these guys have really worked hard to be proactive. And I think this is continuing what they're doing. I very much appreciate it. If anybody has nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to our budget meeting.
So moved.
Thank you.